Shall we start now?
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Welcome back to Beyond Business with Gant Hill, the podcast dedicated to helping you scale your property business and make smarter investment decisions. Today, we are diving into the dynamic world of commercial real estate, focusing on strategic growth and adaptability in a consistently evolving market. Joining us is Gant Hill, a true veteran and president and principal broker at Gant Hill and Associates. Gant brings an impressive 33 years career journey in commercial real estate, evolving from residential to handling all forms of real estate, including business transactions, property management, and investment in apartment projects, offices, buildings, and warehouses. Gant, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. It'll take 30 to 40 minutes. Sounds good?
Yes.
Gant, we had a pre-call, and I am really excited to dive into our topic today, strategic growth in commercial real estate. For our listeners, let's start by setting the stage. From your perspective, what are the most significant trends or shifts you are currently observing in the commercial real estate market, especially concerning the return of office spaces, the evolution of warehouse buildings, and the impact of e-commerce?
Well, thank you for having me, by the way. I am noticing that the buildings that were defined to be one use are now evolving to accommodate the trends and the needs of now and the future. So a traditional office building is often being converted to some form of multifamily or hospitality. We have been involved in 3 conversions already and have another one that is planned. It's a great way to get people back on the streets and filling these wonderful buildings that have architectural significance or are part of the community, give them life. The other thing that I'm observing regarding industrial property is with robotics, the clear ceiling height has been increased. It hasn't started to hit mainstream yet, but in my market, and I'm not sure what the translation is to meters, but our square feet and our ceiling height is in feet, and we're typically 37 feet clear ceiling, where I think that you're going to start seeing 120-foot clear ceiling with the racking systems holding the structure of a warehouse, so that robotics would be placing and retrieving the packages that would be distributed, or there would be a multi-story conveyor system or manufacturing system that would utilize the height as well as the width of the structure. And I don't see the parking lot being as large. They won't have as many employees in those new distribution manufacturing facilities like there have historically been. And I'm finding that there's a lot of sharing of technology in these facilities. So universities and other organizations will likely be providing certificate programs to those that did well in high school, or in your case, I guess it would be the Forum University, et cetera. They would likely be achieving some form of certificate to operate the conveyors and robotics in the properties. Regarding retail, I'm seeing a shift away from the big box stores, thanks to Amazon and the online retailers. But I do feel that neighborhood retail will always be strong, which includes nail places, tanning salons, haircuts, insurance, sometimes dental. Those are always going to be very strong in our market. And I think that demand will be very robust for that property type. Malls are kind of an interesting situation because the way to make those work, you almost have to add senior housing or multifamily of some kind, but they're generally in great locations and have good parking. So there's a lot of evolution occurring. And I think the trick is to allow it to happen. When you see the trend and you see the users looking at the property differently, it's important that we adapt to that as well and find ways to make them work for the next foreseeable future and not be so rigid on property type.
That is a really insightful overview. You shared your extensive 33 years career journey in a commercial real estate starting at age of 19 and
Yes.
evolving through various property types. You emphasized that your business grew organically through providing quality service. Can you expand on what inspired this organic growth model and how core value of 33 years of experience and credibility translates into successful transactions for your clients?
Well, my evolution has occurred by virtue of survival more than anything. My clients and the properties that I serve have had taken me down a lot of paths, and I've had to be, as I said, malleable to accommodate the needs of the clients as well as the properties that I serve. And it's a moving target. So I started off doing a lot of warehouse property, but my clients took me to office. So then I ended up owning office property. And then office died, but I was able to get out before it died. I started to have trouble filling my spaces, and we sold some of those properties at a profit. And then we dove into multifamily, which was growing. And this was probably in the early 2000 teens, late 2000s. Multifamily has continued to evolve. And then we jumped into short-term rental probably about the same time, to be honest with you. We were doing short-term rental since about 2008, 9 and grew that over time. My community is Louisville, Kentucky, which is home to the Kentucky Derby, and we're in one of those markets that doubles or triples in size when the Derby is occurring, and when we have events like that. Like any tourist market, although Louisville wouldn't appear to be a touristy city, it does have times when it has to be that. So there is a very, very strong demand for accommodations for people that are traveling here that our hotels can't always accommodate. So residential becomes a player in that. And we've since converted buildings to be that, office buildings that had reached their useful life. So I've continued to evolve, and then clients have made life changes. They would buy a house, we'd represent them on that. They'd sell a house, we'd represent them there. They would relocate their business, we'd help them with that. And then they'd eventually sell their business, and we'd help them sell their business. And then they'd invest those proceeds into real estate or other things, and we'd help them with that. And then their kids are now looking to do something. So we sort of become almost like a boutique family office for the chief real estate needs, if you will, of clients. And it's allowed us to pivot as we've needed to. It hasn't been necessarily by choice because we didn't set out to do that initially, but it took us there. And I'm grateful for it because we've been able to experience a lot of different types of property and a lot of different situations. So we're one of the few in the market that really has done just about everything.
It's clear that your dedication to client service is paramount. You also highlighted significant challenges in commercial estate financing, including strict underwriting, low capitalization rates, and approximately $1.4 trillion in potentially distressed commercial debts. How do you advise clients to navigate these financing difficulties, and what are the strategies can they employ to secure funding in today's market?
Well, I think that we're going through a cycle right now. I do feel that most of those distressed assets will work themselves out. It's all about supply and demand. And where we are now is what we call extend and pretend with our lenders. As long as you can pay the payments that are required, the bank is often willing to not penalize you for a decrease in value of the asset, which would effectively put it in default in the loan covenants. And that's allowed people to not realize what's really happening. Again, extend and pretend. That's the motto of the day. But with the extend and pretend situation, we've also had a slowdown in construction for the property types that are in distress. So what's happening is there's always still demand, it's just less demand. And with that less demand, you have properties that are taken off the rolls, as we say, repurposed to something different. So it's an office building becoming a hotel, an office building becoming multifamily, and then you take square footage off of the marketplace, and eventually the market will come back around and it'll absorb that property that's still available. So we're seeing that in office currently. Our central business district office, our downtown office, was in bad shape going into about 2015 to 2020. It really started to fall. And then COVID hit and it just fell apart. People stopped working from offices, but there's still office needs and there's still companies out there that require that. And they've had to evolve internally to determine what works for them. They may not need the old fashioned office that they walk into and have offices within the office that people work from. They may want more collaborative space. The spaces may look more like a coffee shop, but nonetheless, we are able to pivot those office spaces that are existing to meet the needs of the current client. In fact, they generally need less square footage, less size, and they are generally able to backfill the vacancy. So now what we're dealing with in my market is there's very low vacancy in that market and prices have been higher than ever. And people that held on are doing very well today. And like everything, you go through cycles, and sometimes it rewards you if you hold on. Sometimes it'll never come back. And in those situations, you have to pivot and figure out the next best opportunity.
It is incredibly valuable for long-term strategic planning. So let's address adaptability in the market. You emphasize that importance of flexibility for commercial real estate professionals, advising them to be open-minded and client-focused rather than property type focused. How does this adaptability help CRE professionals pivot as market opportunities change? And what examples do you see of blurring lines between property types like live work opportunities?
Well, I think that you just got to be able to embrace the natural movement to the new uses, and you have to not be too rigid. You have to be malleable because everything in our lives evolves and it doesn't stay the same. So you just have to figure out how to capture where it's going and let it take you there. And often those in the industry are feeling it before everybody else does. We just have to be able to articulate where things are going. I knew in 2007 that office was going to change. I was having a hard time backfilling the space that the boomer generation was occupying, and the younger generations just didn't work that way. They had phones, they had laptops, they had coffee shops, they had things that they had to do. You had dual income families where the a spouse or a head of the household wasn't the only one providing a paycheck to the family, and that meant that kids had to be picked up and you had to attend football practice, whatever, and it pulled us away from the bricks and mortar office space. And so at that time I started to recognize that we had to pivot. And so we started to sell our office assets. We had about 250,000 square feet of central business district downtown class B or so office space. And we sold that before the market kind of collapsed essentially, which was around COVID, but we sold it at its peak because our buildings were fully occupied when we sold them. But we knew that we were having trouble filling our spaces at the time. It was when they would go vacant, they'd go vacant for much longer. And with the onset of the phone being more advanced and people being able to work from it, it just became very apparent that that was going to be the new office for people more than the bricks and mortar. So, but you gotta let it take you there. And it's a hard thing because there's a lot of sleepless nights when you're starting to observe a trend before everybody else sees it. But you have to be able to explain it to the people around you where you see it going, and be sensitive about it. It isn't always something that people want to embrace immediately because there's a lot of money at stake. But it's inevitable. If you don't get in front of it, it'll take you out.
It sounds like remaining nimble is crucial. You also mentioned that Gant Hill and Associates help clients by serving as their chief real estate officer. throughout various aspects of their property and business needs. Can you explain what this comprehensive consultancy service entails and how your team provide value across home purchases, commercial relocations, investments, and business sales?
Well, we lead with the flesh and blood over the bricks and mortar, I like to say. And I find it to be very important that we observe what people want and what they need. We are often psychologists in that we need to hear what the consumer is saying and how their needs impact their life and how a property that doesn't assist them in their day-to-day livelihood and function as a family, etc., can negatively impact their life. And so we try to resolve that by helping them find the right situation for them. And so that's why we try to get in front of the change of office uses. That's why we try to recognize the need for certain types of housing. In my market, that's why we embraced the short-term rental, the Airbnbs, the VRBO type properties, because we realize that during these periods of the year where we have the Kentucky Derby and we have our music events or we have a PGA event, that a lot of our hospitality cannot accommodate all of those needs. So we end up having extra demand for our housing, our multifamily, and we create spaces that will accommodate that. It's amazing how many different types of occupants need that type of housing. It isn't just travelers, and it isn't just people going to attend these events. Sometimes it's road crews that are here to work on the bridge, and they're coming from Alabama, um, or vendors working on something at the airport, or whatever, or a distribution situation. There's just a need for that. And I'm sure you find it in your market as well. But you got to get in front of it. You have to recognize that it's there and pivot as much as you can. And as that relates to the family office scenario that I mentioned, the consumer, the clients that we represent have their own specific needs, and we need to figure out how to pair that with demand and where the market is headed so that they end up coming out on top and not behind. It's the people that try and hold firm to a property's use or what they think it should be, and they don't allow it to evolve. Those are the ones that end up either selling it for a percentage of its value or sometimes lose it to foreclosure, which happens.
Finally, Gant, if you were to offer one key piece of advice to a commercial real estate professional looking to build a successful, resilient portfolio and maintain a competitive edge in today's dynamic market, what would that be?
I would say be malleable, try to embrace change, recognize that change may change again, but along the way, absorb as much knowledge as you can and experience, because ultimately the real estate practitioner is most valuable when they have experience and they understand how to get a client out of a tough situation or help them achieve their goals. And it doesn't happen overnight. It does take time. And there are a lot of times when we are unsure of our own livelihood. And those are tough times. It's not an easy business because of that. Our income is not consistent. And I've had to evolve out of survival, not so much because I'm trying to be altruistic or a sage in the industry. I had to make it because I had children in schools and I had mortgages to pay like everybody else. I had expenses and I had to figure out how to make it. And to be honest with you, for the first 10 years of my career, I tried to get a salary job somewhere and no one would hire me. So I had to continue doing this because I couldn't get it in any other place. And it looks like I had some vision for real estate, but it really didn't. I just continued on my path because I didn't have another option.
Again, this has been an incredibly insightful conversation. You have given our listeners a comprehensive understanding of strategic growth in commercial real estate. Thank you for sharing your expertise from Gant Hill and Associates.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up the official podcast segment, I want to ask you something that often comes with our audience. For many commercial real estate professionals, the biggest challenge isn't knowing what strategies exist, but consistently executing on them, particularly when it comes to consistently acquiring new clients or high potential CRE deals, or efficiently connecting with the right capital partners in challenging financing environment. If you had a magic wand and could solve one persistent bottleneck for Gant Hill and Associates that's holding back your growth or making it harder to consistently acquire those high quality clients and strategic deals, what would that one thing be?
I think that we are in an interesting time where there's so much information, and there used to be one newspaper that we would turn to when I first started in the business that discussed things that were happening. That newspaper is no longer relevant in our community. There was less data sources, and therefore there were less pipelines for new client acquisition. So I think that in my case, I would like to have more of a pipeline to where people are right now and how I can be influential or a desirable outlet for them. And I've done that through social media. It has been positive for me through LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, etc. I found that to be a way that I could build my brand in a soft sell manner rather than call people on the phone or send them junk email and spam them. That isn't my style, and it's not the way I do things. My way of doing it is to kind of in a low key manner promote some successes, but also try and show my character with my kids, with my life, without it being in everyone's face. And I try not to do it too much. But I feel that if I can find the right way to broadcast who we are and who I am, that is how I will probably achieve more success and more client acquisition. But I do not like buying lists. I've never bought a referral. I've never paid for extra visibility necessarily, because for me, when I do that, when I'm looking at for things and I see those extra ads and pop-ups and all that stuff, it's more of a turnoff. I get more irritated with the fact that it's blocking me from finding what I'm looking for. So I like to just try and create a big network and work within my network. But it's hard to find the right network sometimes. Sometimes it's, not everybody's looking to convert an office building, and you have to appeal to everybody somehow. So it's interesting. We're just in a time with so much data, so much information that it's hard to know exactly where you are finding your people in your audience.
Have you tried AI tools?
A little bit. I need to probably do more of that. I do it without sometimes even realizing I'm doing it, because a lot of the groups that I market through, and honestly, it's not even marketing. The social media is just a way of life. It's less about being deliberate about thinking about how I'm going to pick up business. It's more about just putting out the right message. And through that, a lot of AI tools are initiated that I'm not necessarily directly engaging. But yes, I do a little bit of AI, but I could definitely do more. But I don't want it to be obnoxious. That's my thing, is I don't want to be that guy that's out there promoting something that no one really cares about. I just want to try and lead with my experience and who I am first, and the business does come. Although I'm not the top seller, I'm not the biggest agent, I'm not the biggest property owner. I certainly have a long way to go, but it works for me.
This is a very clear focus. Can you expand a little on why right network that you particularly want is such a significant challenge for Gant Hill and Associates right now?
Well, it's because the market is so there's so much noise right now, and there are a lot of distractions, and it's just being able to find the right pathway that doesn't discredit your brand. I don't want to be just another agent that's making noise. I want to have something important that I can help with, that's impactful for somebody else more than I just want to show off my car or my house or whatever, which a lot of people tend to do. But once you have put something out there, it is discoverable. and people will find it because you've done it. And I think that's part of it too, is you just have to execute. You have to get it out there. But for it to find the right path to find your customer is a challenge because we don't go to our newspapers anymore. We don't go to the traditional ways of doing it. I have no interest in people calling me and trying to sell me something. I have no interest in talking to them because it's noise. It keeps me from being effective with my clients and the things in my life that matter. So I answer my phone for my clients and people wanting to do real estate, but I don't if they're trying to sell me something. Or the other thing is trying to differentiate yourself from the people trying to scam, differentiate yourself from the people that are cold calling is very tough. Because yes, if I could cold call and pick up clients, I probably would. But the reality of it is we have a lot of knowledge right now. Our phones say this could be spam. We see phone numbers that we don't recognize and we send them to voicemail. It's very easy. And it's easy to do when you're in the middle of a meeting and you got something going on, you can't answer it. But the trick is, how do you get to the top? How do you become relevant when you reach out? How can you send an email that doesn't get sent to the junk box folder? And that's a challenge that we all have because there's so many things out there that are not ingenuous, that are relevant to us. You can easily apply for a loan and then you end up getting on, one of those call lists in the black web or the dark web, whatever it is, where they start shopping your phone number around everywhere and you end up getting every Nigerian scammer that's out there. And I don't want to be in that pool. I don't want to be thought of as that. And so relevance is important. Integrity is important. And we got to figure out how to differentiate those that are really experienced, that really know what they're doing, from the ones that are trying to take advantage of the situation. And those guys know much better how to get in front of people than I do, unfortunately.
Gant, thank you again for such a valuable discussion. I
Thank
know
you.
our listeners will get a tremendous amount from this episode. For our listeners, if you are not subscribed yet, our Mehdi AI Consultancy Limited, please click on subscribe button. It's a lot of informative information you can get from our valuable guest. Actually, Gant, you mentioned that you are consistently acquiring, the high quality clients and strategic deal for Gant Hill and Associates. So that is exactly the kind of specialized client acquisition and deal facilitating challenge we are helping property businesses like Gant Hill and Associates overcome with our AI powered system. I'm not sure yet that if it's the right fit, but would you be opposed to a quick 20 to 30 minutes follow-up call where I could prepare a customized growth plan showing you exactly how we have helped other businesses scale their client base and deal flow in the commercial real estate sector? This would be specific
I'm
to
I'll,
your situation.
I'm happy to listen.
Yeah. So this would be specific to your situation at Grant Hill and Associate and something you could implement right away.
Okay. Thank you.
So, are you available on next week? Let me check here. Let me check my diary, which is Tuesday, 26th.
I think that is a tough day for me. Would you be available in June, like early June?
Yeah, let's do June, Tuesday.
I've got kids going through graduation at the moment, so
That's good. That's so nice of them. Yeah, we can do on 1st of June at 4 p.m. UK time, which is exactly we started today. I don't know
okay.
what time are you there now?
That probably works. It's 11 a.m. is when we
11
start.
a.m. Yeah, so I'll do at yours 11 at ours 4 p.m. Great. I have my calendar right now, so I'll this slot. I book this slot. I will send over a calendar invite with all the details right now. It will be a focus session, no fluff, just a clear strategy for you. Really looking forward to continuing this conversation, Gent. Thanks again for your time today.
Thank you.
Have a
Have a great
great
day.
rest of your day. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.